I am finally doing the answers to my PIXAR tag! Huzzah! Hopefully my doing these answers will encourage folks to participate actively in this tag, because I don't think there has yet been any responses to my knowledge. My favourite Pixar film, and this can be broken down into the funniest, saddest, and the most beautiful. My funniest Pixar film choice would have to be Toy Story 2. It's probably in my opinion, one of the best sequels that's ever been out, and I just remember having a good old chuckle when I saw it in the cinema, and it's also one of those that you can rewatch a lot of times and still laugh at, and I quoted it a good deal. I mean, Pixar always do fantastic blooper reels at the end that come up with the credits, but I think the blooper reel for Toy Story 2 remains one of my favourites, especially Mrs. Potato Head packing all the stuff into Mr. Potato Head for the journey, and she's like, I'm packing you an extra pair of shoes and your angry eyes just in case, and in case you get bored, here's some Play-Doh and a key. I don't know what it's for, but you never know. And an extra bouncy ball and a plastic steak and a rubber ducky and a yo-yo. The saddest Pixar film. It will come as no surprise, I'm sure probably everyone's going to say this, but I think Up has to take that award. I don't know if I've ever cried so much in the first 5 minutes of a film ever. I was sobbing and so shocked that they went where they went, but really I admire the tone that they took with that. I don't think they covered it too well during the middle section of the film when they were trying to add in the slapstick comedy and stuff. I think the tone got a tad confused there. But I do love that it kind of bookended on quite a serious note, really. Just gutted in that opening prologue. It was, oh dear goodness me. And the most beautiful Pixar film, in my opinion, is WALL-E. I love that so much of it is essentially a silent film, especially all the opening moments, because you've just got WALL-E doing all his work in what remains of Earth, and I just think it's a lovely introspective look at stuff without, I don't think it hammers its point home too much, and it's still a character-based story. It's a great little sci-fi story too. I didn't go into WALL-E with any expectations at all, so I think it really pleasantly surprised me when I saw it. Top 5 comic moments. One of them would certainly have to be the musical that Sully and Mike write in Monsters, Inc., and it features in the end at the credits, and they like make songs out of the stuff they're saying, so she's out of our hair and all that, so I love the little musical that they write. The Fish Eaters Anonymous meeting, obviously, in Finding Nemo, especially because the 3 sharks that were involved, they were all voiced by Aussie actors, which is great. Seeing as the whole thing is like taking place around the Great Barrier Reef and the East Australian Current and stuff, it makes sense that there should be some Aussie voice actors in there, and I just love it. And I love that they're so happy and proud of Dory because she's never eaten a fish and stuff. I love that scene. I love the old footage of Woody's Roundup that they watch in Toy Story 2, especially because it's got the kind of Skippy / Flipper homage when the little squirrels are like, and she goes, what's that? Jessie and Prospector are trapped in the old abandoned mine, and Prospector just lit a stick of dynamite thinking it was a candle, and now they're about to be blown to smithereens? Yes, I do know a lot of these films to quote. Anything, obviously, that Dory says in Finding Nemo is hilarious, but I do love her, hey, Mr. Grumpy Gills, that I remember spitting my Coke out when that happened. And the abandoned and discarded toy meeting that takes place in Toy Story 3, when all the old abandoned toys and stuff, they gather and have a little support group meeting, and I think it's great because some of those toys are absolutely hilarious, and I wish I knew that scene to quote because it's a doozy. Top 5 sad Pixar moments. I think this is actually, oddly enough, I found this easier to list quickly than the comic ones. You always have a tendency to end up crying in a Pixar film, it's just a given. Listed them by quotes that trigger that particular scene. So I think the So Long partner at the end of Toy Story 3, I was already a mess because of the furnace scene when they were all holding hands. Like, I think that was when I really started to lose it, and I could see lots of people in the cinema I was in, they were already crying by then. But certainly when Andy says goodbye to all the toys and gives them to the little girl, and then he drives off to go to college, and Woody salutes him, and I'm just like, oh god, I was such a mess. I like had my head in my lap, sobbing and sobbing and sobbing. Dory's monologue, of course, I lost it when she said, I look at you and I'm home. I know that my sister especially always lost it when we were watching Monsters, Inc. and Boo is taken back to her room towards the end, and like they change the door so she can't get back to see them, and so she opens it and just says, Kitty, and he's not there. I've already mentioned Up's opening sequence, which again is a given. All of that really was just, I was a mess, like when he was alone at the funeral with all the balloons, and it's like, oh my god. But also right towards the end, anytime he addresses like the photo book and calls it Ellie and says, you know, we made it, Ellie, we got there, I just, oh, such a mess. Marlin and Nemo, when they reunite, when he finds Nemo and little Nemo's on the floor of on the ocean bed, and he'd been caught by the net, and he lifts his little gimpy fin up and they do their little fin hold. That just, and the music, freaking Thomas Newman. Favourite Pixar pairing? This doesn't have to be romantic. So I think certainly a platonic Pixar pairing I adore. I love Marlin and Dory together. I think that they actually make a great pair, and I think they balance one another very nicely, which is evident. Dory gets Marlin to lighten up a bit and not stress and worry nearly as much, and to embrace life a bit more. And Marlin gives Dory this sense of trust and stability, and the idea that she can remember things if she tries, and she can do stuff, and there's more to her than she thinks there is, and more to her than all the other fish seem to think there is as well. And yeah, I just love their friendship. My favourite romantic pairing without a doubt is Wally and Eve. They're just the most gorgeous couple ever, and I love that they've kind of shifted the gender dynamic between them. You know, Wally's much more overtly romantic and passionate and very sentimental, and he watches his Hello Dolly video and likes to do the little dance, and he has all the ideas about what romance are from that movie, so he just wants to hold hands and stuff. And Eve is more a strong, independent woman. She softens up because she gets to meet Wally, and I just think they are just so cute. Favourite song featured in a Pixar film? I think a lot of people hated this moment in Toy Story 2, which is fine. You know, I can understand sort of why they hate it. Because the Pixar films aren't musicals, unlike a lot of their Disney counterparts. They have music featured, but, you know, characters don't burst into song. And even though this was used as an internal monologue sort of number, but Sarah McLachlan's When She Loved Me, it was Oscar nominated, folks, and I think it's a lovely song. And although, yeah, it was quite corny and maybe a bit overdone for some people, I just thought it was a really lovely moment, you know, with Jessie's flashbacks, with Emily, her previous owner, and that kind of thing. I just thought it was nice. I didn't have a problem with it at all, and it got me a bit teary, so, and I think it's a nice song. Favourite music score featured in a Pixar film? I certainly really love Thomas Newman's work. I love Thomas Newman's scores for, you know, multiple films and TV shows. He has a really quintessential style you can usually pick if it's a Thomas Newman score, but I just think his work for Finding Nemo in particular is just astounding, and it's one of those soundtracks I can put in and just play it all through, and just, I love listening to every number. I think it's gorgeous. The main theme is really heart-wrenching for me. It's very simple but so beautiful. Favourite Pixar voice artist? I'm very happy that Jodie Benson, who of course is known for her Disney princess work because she is the voice of Ariel, I love that she got a moment in Toy Story 2 that made me so happy. She was tour guide Barbie. I think John Goodman, like I said in my Disney tag, is just a great voice artist for so many things, so I love him as Sully in Monsters, Inc. He's just got the warmest voice that's really versatile, and he can do lots and lots of stuff, and I think that he can do a lot with his voice very easily, and I think that he's really a good selection for voiceover work. I was genuinely impressed by both Tom Hanks and Tim Allen for the whole of the Toy Story trilogy. I remember when they were first announced as the voices back in '95, and I thought, oh, that's a little strange. Even though I was 9, I still had opinions about casting. But when I saw it, you really do divorce them and who I saw them as. Like Tom Hanks, serious film actor, and Tim Allen, I really just knew it was Tim the Toolman Taylor from Home Improvement. And I completely divorced that idea of them as people and completely accepted them as their characters, and they just vocally embodied them to the fullest extent, and I thought they did a great job. My favourite Toy Story film, I've already mentioned it, but I'm just a big Toy Story 2 fan, and I think it is one of the few sequels that doesn't suffer from sequel syndrome, and because of course now it sits in the middle of this trilogy, you know, it could be considered the weakest of them. But I think they're all very strong films, but I'm just a big fan of number 2. Favourite Pixar hero or heroine? I do have a soft spot, actually, and when I was little I never thought I'd say this, but I do have a soft spot for Woody, because he's a very flawed hero, and he always has a lot to learn. He's always making lots of mistakes, and he still has lots of prejudices. But for a kind of flawed hero who, you know, needs to go through tough times to learn his lessons and stuff, I think that Woody is really solid in that respect. There's lots of meaty stuff there for Woody to get to deal with over the 3 Toy Story films. You get to see him learn lessons and grow and develop and, you know, have his perspective broadened a bit, which is nice to see. And eventually he's the one who's the wisest really out of all of them, which is, you know, brings him back to square one, but he's gone through so much more and is more deserving to be the leader of this gang of toys. We've only really had the one heroine in Pixar films because it's been a kind of boys club to a certain extent, so of course we've only had Merida in Brave. And I enjoyed Brave. I had a good time in it. I don't think it was anything absolutely amazing, and I think there have certainly been much stronger Pixar films, but I did like it. I liked that it was kind of a bit of a Disney princess thing, and they, you know, still made it with some quintessential Pixar elements. And I think Merida was a nice little heroine. I liked that it focused on her. The story focused on her family relations and her own personal growth to a certain extent, and didn't have to bring in a romantic subplot or narrative, which was really nice. Favourite Pixar villain? I think that Emperor Zurg is pretty brilliant because he's just so corny. I'm genuinely creeped out by what's-his-face, the bear in Toy Story 3, the one who smells of strawberries and is pink. His dark edge is really unnerving, and yeah, I genuinely find him quite creepy. Favourite Pixar sidekick? But you can't go past Dory. I think she's a lot more than a sidekick. It kind of ends up being like a dual protagonist, really, in that movie. But you've got to love Dory, because what's not to love? If I get to pick one of my favourite sidekicks in the Toy Story movies, I'm a huge fan of Rex, the dinosaur. I just love Rex. He's quite a sweetheart, and not nearly as vicious, even when he is distrustful and he's kind of, you know, doubting the word of Woody and stuff with all the others. He's not nearly as vicious and hateful with it as some of the others tend to be. Ham and Mr. Potato Head are real dickheads when they get mad, and Rex still maintains a lot of, you know, genuine lovability to him, and I think he's really cute. Favourite comic relief? Certainly Dory, as I've mentioned, but I also have a soft spot for the aliens in the Toy Story films. Favourite Pixar short film? I've loved a lot of them. I know For the Birds was the one I think that played in front of Finding Nemo, I think. I know it was nominated for an Oscar. I think most of their short films actually have been nominated for Oscars. But there's one that actually played in front of Brave this year. And I can't pronounce its name because it's French, but I think it's just something to do with the moon. And it's where this grandfather and grandson have the job of moving the moon into its different shapes every evening, and so they move the stars, and they're in a little fishing boat, and they climb up this really big ladder to the moon and sweep all the stars over to make it into like a half moon and all that kind of thing, or an eclipse or whatever. And I just thought it was such a simple but really magical idea, and it was so lovely. It was really, really, really beautiful. And final question is, the Pixar film that you think deserves a sequel? I would really enjoy seeing a Monsters, Inc. sequel. That could even be in the works, I'm not sure. But I'd look forward to seeing that. I'd love to see Boo grown up, perhaps, and see if she can still have a relationship with the monsters or something. So those are my answers to my own Pixar tag questions, and if you would like to partake in the tag, please do, and link your responses in the doobly-doo, and yeah, Pixar love.